Hi, I'm Steve Hayes, and welcome to This Is My Story. I love stories, and what I find most compelling about them is when I can talk to other people about what's going on in their lives. And when you hear everything that has come together to make them who they are, it's really powerful. So please listen along with This Is My Story.
I'm Don Denbow, and this is my story.
All right. Well, welcome you guys. Thanks for joining us for This Is My Story. We are here with a very special guest today. We have Mayor Don Denbow, who's the Mayor of Corsicana. A lot of people know him as Coach Don Denbow, too. And he's got a lot of titles in this town. A lot of people know who you are. Are you originally from Corsicana?
Well, actually, yes, I went to school in Corsicana, but I lived out west of town on 744, about 6 miles past the high school.
Okay.
And was in what was then called the Drain community, which had probably 50 people in it. So I'm a country boy at heart and by origin.
Right.
And fortunately was able to go to school at Corsicana.
Good.
And get hopefully a good education and a good follow through on athletics and so forth.
So you've always been involved in athletics?
Pretty much. When I was going to Lee Elementary as an elementary student, and we had a football team for the 5th and 6th graders, and so I played on that, and that kind of got me interested in sports.
Yeah.
I also played on American Orange in baseball in the summertime. And had Ed Blackburn as my coach, a great gentleman who eventually was in charge of the housing developments here.
Right.
And he did a lot as an influence for me to, first of all, store your ego away and try to do the best you can and be humble about it if you can.
So football kind of became your thing at some point, right?
Well, it basically I'm a football-baseball guy. I prefer, honestly, no one knows this, but I prefer baseball.
Yeah.
When I got into high school, of course, I was on the baseball team and football team too.
Okay.
In '63, we won the state championship, which was, and we were 14-0. We won 14 games and lost none. So that was a great achievement, but that was a game changer for me and a life changer for me because, number one, it allowed me to get a scholarship to go to SMU, and I stipulated in my scholarship agreement with Hayden Fry, who was the head coach at SMU, was that I would like to have a full baseball scholarship in addition to a full football. And what that did for me is if I got tired of getting beat up on the football field, and I could revert back to which was my first love at the time, baseball.
Right. What position did you play in
Third
football?
Base. Oh, in football? Actually, Jerry Moore was one of our assistant coaches who just came to us from Baylor, and who eventually won some state national championships at Appalachian State.
Okay.
But he was a great, in my opinion, pass coordinator. He knew how to, because Baylor did it, and so he made me, after the first 3 weeks of practice, they spread me out as a wide split end, which that was one of the few split receivers in Texas at the time. Right. Of course, now is commonplace.
Yeah.
But at that time, it was different.
Yeah. And
looking back over the old films, our passing game made a huge difference in loosening people up and allowing us to score more points. So
you played the same position at SMU?
SMU. I was second behind a legend at SMU, Jerry Levias.
Okay.
Yeah, we won the conference championship in 1966, which was unheard of for SMU, and played Georgia in the Cotton Bowl and got beat pretty soundly, but still. That was a good accomplishment to have that happen to us at SMU. Then I played baseball in the spring.
Okay.
Bob Finley was a coach at that time. And we, a lot of us football players joining that program. It wasn't just me, it was a lot of others. Mike Livingston was a great player, and Harold Richardson was a great player. We came within one game of winning the conference championship, was again unheard of. But after that, I signed a pro baseball contract with the Dodgers. And one of the experiences that I really cherished was that I played for Tommy Lasorda in the rookie league.
Wow.
And so up to the point where I got promoted to Santa Barbara, I played for Norm Sherry. But Tommy was an excellent, I wouldn't say a role model,
right?
But he was really an interesting guy.
Yeah.
So, but I really enjoyed that experience.
So you knew then that he was going to go on to big things.
Yeah, he had that capability. There was no doubt.
Right.
I mean, he had a joke and a story for everything, and he just one of those exceptional people that you look back on and say, "Boy, that really helped me when I was playing under him."
That's amazing. See, I'm already learning a bunch of things I didn't know about you. That's awesome.
Well, I was not to brag, but I mean I was a first-round draft choice for the Dodgers.
Wow.
So I had a good junior year at SMU, and then signed for a contract in the summer of '67.
Okay. So you go through all that, and eventually you end up back here in Corsicana.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about the route that led you back to Corsicana.
Well, I was playing in Bakersfield, California for the Dodgers. The Dodger organization moved the California League team from Santa Barbara, where I started and played in '67.
Okay.
And then I played 2.5 years at Bakersfield, which was a good experience. We had good players, and of course the Dodgers, an excellent organization. But it just so happened, I mean, injuries kind of got me, and basically I tell people I just, wasn't good enough. So that's the way it happens in professional baseball.
Right.
You can be really good in your local region or whatever, but, I mean, trying to ascend those steps in pro baseball is difficult because it depends on health, it depends on playing under a good manager or having good teammates.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I don't blame any of that on any of that. I wasn't a good enough player to make it.
Yeah, and I would imagine unless you're a transcendent talent, a lot of things have to break your way in order to make it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you finish up your career in that, and you decide.
Yeah, the summer of '69, I had a daughter, Laurie, and my wife, Linda, of course, and we prayed about it, and I decided, well, I needed to make a change. I mean, progress was I was hitting like 250, 260 somewhere in there, and had a few home runs, but nothing exceptional.
Yeah.
And the story was that Ron Say came to Bakersfield, and they moved me to the outfield. Of course, Ron Say was a great player for the Dodgers when they were really good.
Right.
And so I was out of position, so to speak, and so I said, maybe it's best that I just go on down the road and do what I like doing. So we drove back to Corsicana in that summer, '69, and going all the way back, we discussed what I think we should be doing next. And I always liked football, and I enjoyed being around good coaches. Jesse Cummins was one of my coaches in middle school, a great person. He always told us about his landing on Omaha Beach, and that kind of gave you some history about our country as well as the achievements of somebody that I knew personally.
Right.
So, and then Jim Akery comes to town, and we win the state championship. But anyway, I liked the football end of it, and so what they say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Right. And I was very fortunate. Jerry Moore, the aforementioned person that was one of our coaches in '63, helped me get a job at Mesquite ISD, and I was really fortunate because I became a varsity assistant, which is kind of unheard of and that big a deal. But anyways, It was because of Jerry's recommendation. So I spent 1 year at Mesquite coaching. I coached football, and believe it or not, I was a head track coach.
Okay.
which, they needed me to do that. So I had to
Right.
do some studying to figure out, what was what.
Yeah.
But after 1 year there, I followed one of our coaches to Midland Lee, which is an outstanding school district and really good education situation for all its students. But I went to work for Jim Akery, who was my coach in high school, and I stayed there 4 years.
Okay.
And so working for Jim was a great experience. I squeezed, 20 years of experience into 4 years because we worked hard.
Right.
And so hard work in preparation for the opponent and making sure our kids were prepared and things of that nature was a big part of working for Jim Akery. And I became after 2 years there, the defensive coordinator, which was a big honor for me because that was they call that the Little Southwest Conference. The Midland School, Odessa Schools, Big Springs, Abilene.
Always in it.
Oh, I mean, it's huge people. Permian was the big rival. But anyway, I stayed there, and I just about got worn out. I mean, and the thing is, too, my mom was a little ill, so we decided to move back to Corsicana. Wasn't going to coach. I just would like to have a teaching job. So they said, well, we have a teaching position for special ed. Would you do that? And I said, absolutely, what I got to do. So I had to attend Odessa Junior College to get certification to be a special ed teacher. So that helped me when I was a coach because it makes you understand and appreciate the limitations of some people and how they need extra help in some ways. And to get across a message to those kind of kids means you could get across a message to most other kids.
Right.
So
that's a fascinating insight. We have a special needs son, and
absolutely,
and that's been my experience too. If you can learn how to communicate and manage a child with special needs, it teaches you a lot about communicating and managing other people as well.
Right.
So I'm sure that helped in your coaching and
absolutely
and all your communication with others.
Well, my daughter's following that a little bit. She's
that's right.
involved with this special ed kids for CISD, and she has a heart for those kind of kids.
She's great at it. She's been a big help to us.
Well, great.
That's
Thanks.
awesome.
I appreciate that.
So you end up back here and you end up coaching. Coaching football.
Well, my first day back on the job, I told them I didn't want to necessarily coach. I think Don Bowen was the superintendent then. Yep. And lo and behold, I report for the first day and said, "Oh, by the way, you're the assistant freshman coach." Well, I went from defensive coordinator's job at a big 4A at the time as 4A, and to come back as a freshman coach was kind of a step back. So, but I decided I would do that because basically I needed the job. And
how long was it from that time till you became the head coach?
It was 4 years. I was the freshman assistant 2 years, and I was the varsity defensive coordinator for a year under Bill Froman. And then the fourth year I became the head coach in 1977.
And how long were you the head coach?
16 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it is. But here's the deal. I mean, I get credit for a lot of it, but I had good assistant coaches. I had good support from the administration. Mark Colwell was the superintendent.
Okay.
He's like a second dad to me. And then the third thing is, we had good athletes, which is really the most important thing. So we won more games than anybody in the history of Corsicana.
Wow.
And we did that. It wasn't just me. It was the organization and the people we had.
What's the most talented player you coached?
Oh my goodness! Don't put me.
You probably had a bunch,
on the spot.
huh?
I had a lot. Bill Jones was one.
Uh-huh.
He was an All-American running back. But I had a lot of good players. Matt Clark was my quarterback in the state finals game. June Clark was his dad. He was a banker here. But we had. Like I said, we had good players, and the coaches gave the players every opportunity to win if they so desired, and they did. They were motivated.
That's awesome. And then you go from there to being, the superintendent?
Over a period of 2 or 3 years, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was when I stopped coaching, I became the athletic director.
Mm-hmm.
The official title was let me think what that label was. Anyway, they gave me executive director of UIL and student services, which means I took care of all the athletics.
Mm-hmm.
The person who timed the one-act play in the district meet. Elaine Hand got me to do that, and I had to read up on it.
You wore every hat there was.
Yeah, because, number one, if you were the judge, if you were the person doing all the administration of the meet, you could not allow a one-act play cast or the one-act play to go past a certain amount of time.
Right.
So you had to watch your watch, or you disqualify that contingent of people.
Wow.
And that was really a lot of pressure because they had worked all year to be there, and to lose it if you were 1 second over is a bad deal.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was kind of fun because I learned something new.
Yeah.
And Elaine was really good to help me. She had great one-act plays here for a long time in Corsicana.
Mm. So you go to superintendent. How long were you the superintendent?
6 years.
6 years.
I was athletic director or UIL and student services for 3 or 4 years. And then I decided I wanted to get back into administrative part of it to be around kids more than I was in the central office. And so I became the principal of high school and stayed there for 3 years. And that was one of the most interesting jobs I've ever had. There's a lot of issues with that, a lot of pressure.
Sure.
But the good news was you're always judged by the performance on the state assessment, test. But we were 2 students away from being a recognized campus, which, we came a long way in 3 years. Mm-hmm. Then I went back and helped Jim Dixon at the central office again and stayed with him a couple of more years, and he left and retired, and then I became superintendent. I was real fortunate that the board selected me to do that. I was a Corsicana native, and I was really loyal to the district and the people we had, all the school board members and so forth. We had a great school board when I was working there as an underling to the superintendent and when I was a superintendent.
Right.
I would say at this juncture that Kent Rogers was there.
Yep, Kent, awesome guy. Mm-hmm. Awesome guy. I sure miss that man.
Yes.
So 6 years as a superintendent, and then did you just step away from that? Was it just time to move on, or?
Yeah, I just retired. I had at that juncture I had 41 years in education. So it wasn't anything negative at all about it. I just maybe it's time to go. In 41 years, I was like 64, 5 years old, and so it was just time to give it to somebody else, and I was happy to do that. And I helped Diane every chance I got. Diane Frost, who was a good choice, and she's done really well. I would say the last year of my superintendency, it took 6 years with the help. Again, this is like football, with a lot of help from a lot of people.
Sure.
We became a recognized district.
Awesome.
Which was, that's a big deal.
Big deal.
Yeah, but it took 6 total years to do it.
Yeah. So, at what point did you decide that you wanted to go into public service and put your hat in the ring for mayor?
2011, I ran for the city council.
Okay.
Ran against a really nice lady, Dana Collins. She was a good lady. We thought the same. It's just the luck of the draw that I won, she lost. And I was on the council 6 years, and then Chuck McClanahan was been the mayor for 6 years, and he decided he wanted to retire. So basically, I took over for that. I've been fortunate as mayor. I haven't had an opponent for the last 3 elections, but my whole thing with that is certainly wasn't for the money. It's not. There's not any money in it.
Right.
But I was trying to repay the community for all it done for me, and make sure that things were, hopefully that we could really do some good things with economic development and other things. There's been some controversy, especially here lately. That just goes with it. And bottom line is, council people and mayor included, that makes 5 of us, you are responsible fiduciary-wise for the well-being of the city, which means money. You got to know what the numbers are, because you can let it get away from you, and your city can go way down, and there can be some real ramifications for that. So every decision you make is based on, number one, how good something is, a service. It has to be good service for our citizens. And then the second thing is it has to make fiduciary sense.
Yeah, financially responsible.
Exactly.
So I'm going to change gears just a little bit, and we'll come back to all these things that we've talked about, because certainly you've had a full and fascinating life. But I wanted to talk to you. Part of the reason we do this podcast is to get people to share not only what their history is and their experiences, but there's a spiritual component to life that is so important. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that and hear a little bit from you. Typically what happens with a person is they're introduced to church or to God on some level through another person or through experiences, and maybe through the family. And then they get to a point in their life where they've got to make a decision that, hey, this is really something that's meaningful to me and is going to be an integral part of my life, or it's not.
Right.
And so at what point did a relationship with God, a trust in Jesus, at what point did that become yours?
Well, it evolved, Steve, over a period of time. When I was growing up, we went to a Methodist church out in Drain Community. And right next to it was a Baptist church, by the way. We had 2 churches right there together. But we went to the Methodist church, and just a fascinating story for me is that when my dad decided to build a house, he bought that church, and we tore it down and built a house out of it, and it was where I grew up. But anyway,
that is cool.
In that Baptist church moved over onto Highway 31. So I would go to after that Methodist church was no longer there, I went to Central Methodist Church in Corsicana, and it was evolved over a period of time that I just thought, I want to worship God. I understand that Jesus Christ did what He did to save us, and He was my Savior. So it was just a period of time, and my wife was Presbyterian. Linda lived in Galveston, and moved here, and was in the Westminster Presbyterian. So I moved to becoming a Presbyterian.
Yeah.
And now I'm an elder in a church, and thankfully we've gotten a new preacher, and I think she's going to do a great job.
Yeah. So has that trust in God really helped sustain you as
Absolutely.
You've gone through all these different periods of your life, and has that brought you a lot
it's been the backbone.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. Kind of one of those things, when you have a trust in God, it doesn't matter what else you go through. It's always that thing that's kind of at the core of the way you process just about everything.
Everything. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
We used to go to Mo Ranch every year, which is a Presbyterian retreat, and that came to the front in every year. I mean, it was a heartwarming, heart-touching experience, just like all my childhood and adulthood.
Have you found that your walk with God has become more meaningful to you as you've gotten older?
Pretty much. It's moved to the core of my existence, really. I mean, my wife and I, we go to church, and our kids went to Westminster as well, and they're not quite as diligent as we are. My daughter goes a lot, and my son, for some reason, hadn't yet. But I know that he believes. He's a believer, and eventually he'll get back into the fold. But it is an essential part of my life and my kids' life and my wife's life, and it's an underpinning for everything I do and think.
Yeah. So let's switch gears again and go back to, you've had all these experiences from, growing up here to football and baseball to college, and going to the big city in Dallas, and then going to the Dodgers organization, then having opportunities to, you start with kind of special ed and assistant coaching and things like that, and then you end up in leadership. And it seems like the theme of your adult life has been leadership, just various levels of leadership. You're coaching at a high level for 16 years as a head man. You're right from there into other areas of leadership as AD, principal, and superintendent. And now probably, an area where most people would look and say, you've got the primary leadership role in this community as the mayor. What's the key to good leadership in your mind?
Well, that's a great question. I think instinctually it's a way of creating an environment where everyone feels valued and can input ideas and be part of the solution rather than part of a problem.
Right.
When I was at the high school as a principal, a lot of those people I had worked with a long time is because I was in a coaching role, and I would say that when I was named the principal, they say, "Oh my gosh, you got an old dumb football coach," but Elaine Ann, who I'd worked with in UIL stuff, said, "You just need to wait and see and make your own decision, but just don't think he's one way or the other." And so it worked out good.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I said, okay, we need to do these steps to help kids get to this point in the classroom. And it was amazing. I had great cooperation and loyalty to me and to the kids. So I would like to think that the educational environment at the high school at that time really got better and better and better. But again, I keep going back to this. You can't be a good leader unless you have good people working with you. And I had great teachers and counselors and coaches, and so I think it all resulted in an environment for kids to succeed in.
So a lot of it, if I'm hearing you correctly, is buy-in. You got to have people around you who bought in to what you're doing.
Right.
And in order to get people to buy in, you have to kind of sell them a vision.
Exactly. Exactly. And every day has to be you cannot change one day to the next. You follow the same principles, and you keep enunciating to your folks that work with you what the final goal is and how, and then you need to, in my opinion, you need to compliment those people who are a part of an organization and who are doing their very best. And then any of them that's not doing what they should be, you take them aside and you don't fuss at them or complain to them. You just say, look, we need you to do this and this and this, because it will result in these kids being successful not only in your classroom but in their lifespan. So
that's good. So keeping a level head and staying cool is a big part of it too. You can't lose your cool. Yeah. So one of the things I've wanted to talk to you about this for a long time. One of the situations that I told you I was going to stay away from a whole lot of issues, and I plan on it, but this is an important issue not just for Corsicana but in our world today. One of the things that I feel like I've made some good steps and some bad steps in this town over the year, just like any of us have. But one of the things that I remember in particular that you talking about, you talked about it at a Ministerial Alliance meeting one time, was the whole situation with the park gorilla. Do you remember that situation?
Oh, yeah.
What a mess that was. And I misread that situation, I'll admit, initially. When I first heard about that situation, and for those of you listening, it's kind of hard to explain, but there is a gorilla in the park, in Community Park, that has, recently, not too long ago, stirred up a lot of controversy in our town. It was in a cage, and there were many people in our town who just thought, well, that's a novelty thing. It's kind of a fun deal that kids play in this park, and it's no big deal. But there were many others in this town who felt like it was racially insensitive and had been for a long time. And it turned into a big thing. And there were people on all sides of it. And I think my big mistake in that was I just didn't realize how big of a deal it was to certain folks in our community. Right. I didn't realize that it was hurtful, and had been for some time. And you seemed to realize that right off the bat and kind of made some decisions surrounding that. And you didn't get hot and bothered or, make a big scene, but you had to deal with that situation. I remember when you talked about it at the Ministerial Alliance, you said, when I coached a lot of these families. Right. I coached a lot of black families, yes, black kids. Mm-hmm. I feel a responsibility to that community, and that's my people, and I want to take care of them. If something hurts them, right, I want to be sensitive to that.
That's exactly right.
How did you come from a generation and a time period where you probably seen a lot of insensitivity in that area and abuse in that area, quite frankly. How'd you know how to manage that situation?
Well, one thing, I believe in that side of the town. I believe in those folks. Mm-hmm. African Americans have just as much rights and responsibilities as anybody else. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, my dad was a bus driver. He was a farmer and a bus driver, and he asked for the assignment of driving the Jackson Bears every weekend to their game, and I always wanted to go with him, and so Coach Day, who was the really ultra successful coach on the east side with the Jackson team, I would ask him, or Dad would ask him, can my son Donnie go with us over to the game, because we were transporting to the Old Tiger Field over there near Lee School. And he said, sure. So I went I had early experience with the east side of town, and they have substantial feelings about what is the source of racism. And I had a lot of them come to me to tell me that when this happened. Mm-hmm. The thing is, I didn't tell anyone who those people were. Right. But they came to me and they asked for my help, and they said, "Look, we know maybe some white folks don't think this way or that way, but it's offensive to us." Mm-hmm. So to me, the idea that if you're a mayor, that you need to look at all your personnel. Of course, people, what are the consequences if you take a gorilla statue and do away with the cage? Why don't you just leave it there without the cage anyway? Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of options there, and hopefully we made the right decision. But I can't say that I was right or wrong. All I can say is I followed my heart, and I think that some of the folks on the east side, they didn't want any kind of attention. They didn't want anybody coming to them and sitting in the front yard and talking about it. And I understand that. Mm-hmm. And some of them might have deserted me in the fray, but that's okay. I knew it was right for them, and we have to be a champion for everybody in this town. I don't care who they are. We have a great Islander population. Mm-hmm. We have a tremendous African American population. The Mexican Americans are of course coming, and they are contributing to the community.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have to be conscious of everything, or for every group of people.
And it sounds, when you say that, it sounds so reasonable and easy. But boy, it's a tricky situation these days to know what is, golly, I don't even know the right word. It's just hard to know what the right steps to take are, and what's reasonable, what's extreme, and to find the balance in the midst of all that when you're serving such a diverse community.
Right.
And this is a very diverse community.
Yeah, it is.
Very diverse. Well, thanks for talking about that. I didn't tell you I was going to talk about that.
No, that's okay.
I didn't know I would, but it was just something
that was
that
a hard
always
time,
kind of stuck with me.
We tried to get through it, and hopefully no one was injured by it. And so, we just, you make your decisions as they come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it got a lot of attention, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And well, that's the nightmare scenario in some ways as a leader. Is I always had this saying. I say it to my staff sometimes, like, my goal is just to stay off the front page. I want to be back page news, or not news at all.
Right.
And so sometimes the toughest scenario is when all of a sudden, through no really doing of your own, you find yourself in the limelight.
Right.
And having to deal with a hot button issue. But that's another one of those leadership things. Just comes with the territory, doesn't it?
Pretty much. I mean, every day is not the same.
Yeah.
You have different issues, and you don't have time to prepare on some of the issues to make sure everybody's happy with the decisions.
Yeah.
It's just that's just the nature of the beast. When you're the mayor, you just have to take those criticism and go on down the road.
It's the burden of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely.
It comes with some heavy weights sometimes, but you seem to stay pretty steady through it all. What's your secret there?
Well, we'll take an example of playing in Texas Stadium against a really great team in Cleburne. I'm making third down calls with third down and 15 to go, and you just have to hopefully you've prepared enough to understand what's going to work and what's not going to work,
mm-hmm.
and you make the call. Mm-hmm. And thankfully we were able to do that without too much damage.
Right.
But we ask I have an open door policy.
Yeah.
If they want to come and talk to me individually, that's the way to go about it. It's not to demonstrate or get in a crowd and say things without factual basis.
Mm-hmm.
If they come to me and I don't know the answers, then I'll try to find the answers. I don't. But again, my job, in my opinion, and all of the council, is the fiduciary job of making sure that the city is financially viable and is staying that way.
Yeah.
And anything that interferes with that, you've got to deal with it.
Yeah. One of the things that we do a marriage curriculum up here, and kind of a marriage class that we work with people.
Right.
No matter what level they may be in marriage, we work with them. And one of the principles I learned from that curriculum we use is to believe the best about your spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes that's easy. Sometimes they give you the best to believe in, and sometimes it's not. And I think that has helped me a lot in other areas of just human interaction, especially in leadership. Most people aren't doing things to try and hurt you. Most people aren't doing things to try and get up on you. Most people are doing the best they can with what they've got. And if you can just find a way to kind of believe the best about them, sometimes it helps. And I think that's what people need to do with somebody in your position as well, is just, you're doing the best you can with what you've got, and
Well, every decision is complex.
Yeah.
There are very few simple decisions that have to be made, and a complex situation has facts associated with it, and
that not everybody's privy to.
That's true, and that's a concern. Again, if they come to the office and want to talk about it, I can give them the facts. And I can tell them this is why we did this.
Yeah.
But sometimes that doesn't happen. Speaking of whys, I've got a great one.
No doubt. Me too. We share that in common.
Yeah.
We share that in common.
Yeah.
Well, man, thank you for spending time with me. I find it's easy for me to believe the best about you, and I appreciate the service that you've given to our community.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you spending some time talking to me.
You bet.
On this thing. Who knows who's listening, but maybe it'll be helpful.
Well, the town's great to have you here in the church doing what you're doing. I know we
love it.
Yeah, I know that you do, and I hear great things about you.
Well, good. Don't believe everything you hear. Thanks, Don. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Steve.
If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe. And if you'd like to spread the word, please consider leaving a 5-star review and tell your friends to subscribe too. Our video podcast is available on our Grace Community Church YouTube channel. This Is My Story is produced and engineered by Jake Moore and is a ministry of Grace Community Church in Corsicana, Texas. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily express the views of Grace Community Church. Thanks for listening.